What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark, MikeTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're talking about How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. It's the third film in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and I've already reviewed everything else in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Well, not the TV shows, but oh my god, that would be a lot of work. There are like a bunch of them. So click like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because you never know what I'm going to review next. I do movies and TV and awards talk and all sorts of things here on my channel. It's always from the blind perspective. Other critics claim that they go into things blind. I literally go into things blind all the time. So for a completely different perspective than what you're used to, and for hearing something called audio description talked about in a movie review, maybe that's why you should be here. How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. I've seen this before. Interestingly, this was while I was losing my sight. So I couldn't see this very well when I went to theaters. I was already like, quote unquote, legally blind at this point. Wasn't driving, has somebody go to the theaters with me. So what my ability to see things on the screen was sort of limited when this movie came out. But I did try to go to theaters to see this the first time. This is my first time watching with audio description because in my earliest stages of vision loss, I was kind of a dumbass and didn't know what to ask for accessibility, even though I worked in movie theaters. I didn't know all of the, the rules and regulations. Plus, I was pretty certain, since the theater I went to that time didn't have audio description equipment when I worked there, that maybe they didn't have it then also. So asking for something they didn't have didn't make sense. But now I've heard it with audio description. I want to say this is my third time watching it. Actually, I might have already watched it on streaming another time because it felt a little bit more familiar than something that I saw once, it's like 7 years ago. So maybe. But pretty much everybody returned for this, except a notable exception. Can you guess what the exception is? I wish I had like Blue's Clues or Dora the Explorer here to help me on this. Can you say T.J. Miller? T.J. Miller did not return for this movie. Google is your friend. Actually, so are all the AI generator things. I'm sure they can all answer that question for you, but yep. T.J. Miller is the notable exception from the cast. He was replaced by some rando who was not chosen because of their talent. They were chosen based on their ability to sound like T.J. Miller. I'm sorry, but you know that's true. It's the same thing with the guys playing Rick and Morty right now. Cool. But they literally went and found a contest for people to try to sound like Rick and Morty. I kind of appreciated what Solar Opposites did instead when presented with the same situation. They just went and got Dan Stevens and then just were like, yep, voice totally different. Deal with it. I love that show. So yeah, they just found some dude who sounds like TJ Miller, which kudos. It got him work, I don't know how much work he gets sounding like TJ Miller, but he got work for this. And so Jay Baruchel, America Ferrera, Cate Blanchett, Jonah Hill, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Kristen Wiig, and not TJ Miller return. As does we've got Craig Ferguson and Gerard Butler does show up in flashbacks. There are a lot of sort of flashbacks about Hiccup, who now is in charge of everything, sort of remembering he's having his like Simba Mufasa moment where Stoic is like, all the light touches is yours. This is your kingdom. He gets to have sort of those flashbacks where it's like, this is our land now. It will be yours soon. Which is interesting because of how the way that the movie ends. It bookends it really nicely. So it's it's kind of cool to have Gerard Butler here. So if they do end up making the live action trilogy, this would come out in 2029, since they're slating the live action sequel for 2027. If they're trying to do them at every 2 years to fast track it before these kids grow up, you'd see this in 2029, and Gerard Butler would still be in it. If curious, I'm sure they would do the same thing. So, since the first ones was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, just do the same thing. Yeah. So Hiccup has almost too many dragons, at this point. They have saved and kept all of the dragons that they could possibly. It's like Ash has achieved, gotta catch them all. It's like what that actually looks like. And he's like, oh my god, I didn't realize there were this many Pokemon. I just thought there was like 151. Jesus Christ, I didn't know there was many. So, yeah, it's sort of bogging them down a little bit. And on top of that, there is a warlord, who's voiced by F. Murray Abraham, which is interesting to bring him into the franchise while also sending TJ Miller away. Again, Google is your friend, although I think Hollywood cares a lot less about F. Murray Abraham, because in and around his stuff, he also maintained an Emmy nomination for his season of The White Lotus. So I think Hollywood was just like, it's F. Murray Abraham. But he also did leave Mythic Quest, so I don't know. Take it for what you will. So he plays the villain here, who is hunting down, he wants to kill the last Night Fury. He believes he's killed every Night Fury, and he has these people who have had their dragons taken from them, these bad guys, hire him to do it, and they give him this. They've captured a Light Fury, so it's basically like Toothless but white instead of black, and with slightly different powers. It's the female version of Toothless, so of course it's a love story for Toothless. And that's also mirrored by the fact that Hiccup, also, it's about time for him to start thinking about maybe having a love story of his own, because he's had his eye on somebody for the last 2 movies. Astrid. So everything about this is love, and it also, the last 2 movies, I've put them into Desert Island films, which I usually don't do for anything that's under 5 watches for me, and this one is not above 5. So it's not a Desert Island movie for me, and also it's not as, I don't think it is where the other 2 movies are for me. Like 1 and 2 perfectly complement each other. 3 does feel like to me that it's stuck following sort of the same formula that Toy Story 3 was, where like 1 and 2 made perfect sense. They just kind of flipped the story around. They changed it up a little bit by showing a different perspective through Jessie. And you get that here in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, because obviously Hiccup's parents were divided on how they saw the world of dragons, and it was flipped, and you see that his mom is more like him because he wasn't like his dad, and that was sort of this contentious part of the whole first movie. So the second How to Train Your Dragon works because it complements the first film. The third film, sort of all the stories have been told that naturally progress. So instead, it becomes a little bit of a love story, which Toy Story 3 kind of tackles a little bit with Buzz and Jessie, but not full on. It just kind of hints at it, and also has Ken and Barbie. So like there are these little like flirtatious things that happen throughout the thing, but unfortunately we jettisoned Bo Peep, so we have to do that in the 4th movie. So, which did not need to exist. And it also becomes about farewells. It becomes about saying goodbye, because there's a whole thing that they wrap up with Andy at the end of Toy Story 3. Meanwhile, we have to have a villain. Now, Toy Story 3's villain, Lotso, is super memorable and iconic. This guy, I don't remember his name at all. and nor did I care. I think he's a weak villain, and he controls dragons by using their venom. Like, he studied dragons, so he has these like acid spitting dragons that he just injects them with their own venom somehow that gives him mind control over them. Don't think too hard. Don't. But the adventure is fun. The story is fun. It's all about Hiccup growing up and having to become the leader that his father was. There's a lot of that through flashbacks. He also has to learn to sort of be his own man without Hiccup. He has to learn that without Toothless. He has to learn that he's grown a lot on his own, but also because of Toothless. Like, he's a completely different person than when he first started, and it's always been his sort of different approach to things that has gotten him through things and gotten his people, all of the Vikings, to still be safe. They talk about relocating, and they try to do that, and they keep trying to hide from this guy and his massive army and these dragons that they control. And at the end of the day, Hiccup has to eventually let Toothless be Toothless, and he's got to fly off with the Light Fury. So he has a lot in this movie, a lot of time without Toothless. There's a lot of talk about Toothless being the alpha. But Cate Blanchett's dragon was also the alpha, so I felt like I missed something along the way. That was the only thing that I felt like I missed something in the story, because I'm pretty certain that her dragon was the alpha from the second movie, right? Isn't her dragon actually an alpha? Anyway, but because of the events of the second film and the fact that Toothless led those dragons and sort of stared down the other dragon, I guess that made him an alpha. He's just a tiny one. So don't overthink it. So they feel like that if they take out Toothless, that the other dragons will fall because he's now their alpha. Sure. All of this leads to eventually the hidden world, which is like, well, in Viking lore, remember when people used to think the Earth was flat? Well, they still do, but they play with that idea of how there's like a great waterfall at the end of the world and then you just fall off of it. But instead of that, there's this hidden world where the dragons live, where there's but it would be impossible for humans to get there because it's like you'd fall off the planet. It's like through the mist and then off of a giant waterfall. And the reason why Hiccup and Astrid are able to go there is because they're riding on a dragon. They're riding on Astrid's dragon, and so they get to see this hidden world and know that it exists and all these little dragon babies and everything, and Toothless and the Light Fury, and that's the hidden world. So yeah, Hiccup has to learn how to say goodbye and let Toothless do his own thing and set him free. And it ends on a very sort of like heartwarming note where we're all like in the future, and Hiccup's got his own kid because the parallels have already been put there because Hiccup's there with his dad, Stoic, and so it's now Hiccup's raising his own kids, and Toothless comes by for one visit. And at first, we're not sure if they recognize each other, but of course they do, because this is a heartwarming DreamWorks movie and not Nightmare Fuel. So that's kind of the story. Obviously the villain's gonna get their day, and I like the movie a lot. I know it sounds like I don't, but I think sometimes with sequels, with trilogies, with franchises, we do hit a point where it's like, those movies were great. Now we're like, okay, we're good. Like, I'm thinking this is good. I enjoyed this movie. I've seen it a couple times. I don't know that if I'm always in a rewatch mood that I need to go 1, 2, and 3. I could do 1 and 2. I think that's true for a lot of franchises. I think about The Godfather. There are people who want to watch the whole thing because they want to watch the progression of the characters, and that's kind of how I feel watching these movies. But there are people who go, yeah, it's 1 and 2, you know, three's there, it exists, and they'll watch it. Uh, and I think How to Train Your Dragon 3 is a better sequel than Godfather Part 3 is in many ways. Um, I think it's a lot closer in terms, but I do think that there are better trilogy finales. I think Toy Story 3 somehow managed to close off a trilogy, even though it didn't meet the same sort of formula that Toy Story 2 expertly followed. It just didn't quite do the same thing. And then we came along and just killed the whole thing by making a fourth film, which nonsensically is other trilogies. You know, you've got the great debate about which Star Wars films are the best. For me, Return of the Jedi is kind of like number 3 for me, but also I want to watch the whole thing. Like, I do think A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are better movies. Return of the Jedi is 3rd for me. So it sort of feels like where Hidden World is that kind of comparison. But there are other franchises where I'm like, I kind of like the 3rd film at least more than another one. They kind of raised it up. Indiana Jones. I like Last Crusade more than Temple of Doom. Maybe that's sacrilege. I don't know, but I don't think they ended on the lowest note of that series. I actually prefer the fun of Last Crusade to Temple of Doom. So I don't know. Let me know what trilogies you think, and what is comp to you to the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. What do you think is 3 the best one in this franchise, or is it the worst one? Is it significantly worse than everything else? Is it about the same? Give me your thoughts in the comments. But for me, I think it's just a notch below. I think I don't know that even if I watch it over 5 times that I'm ever going to say it's a Desert Island movie for me, because I think I could just take the first 2 and those would be my comfort movies, and this one would just always sort of complete it. Now, other franchises have had sequels, and the sequels don't even work, and I don't even really care. The Matrix is a franchise for me that I just only need the first one. I don't even need the sequels. But then there's a franchise like Mission Impossible where it's like I wouldn't even start talk of Desert Island until later in the franchise. So, it's interesting to think about sort of like where franchises peak and rise and fall, and the end of an era and all that kind of stuff. I think there are some franchises that are equal all the way through and they perfectly complement each other. Certainly, absolutely. Where it's just like, I can't pick one. Which one? I find merit in all of the Lord of the Rings films, and I kind of debate and say I think I like the Two Towers the most, only because The Return of the King has 15 different ends to it. I get that it's epic as fuck, but also, Jesus. So, yeah, maybe that's the one that's kind of like everything perfectly complements each other, but they knew that was pre-planned based on books. They were able to do that. So it was very balanced. There weren't sequels that were getting ordered. It's very, there's so many other examples to just dive into and talk about other than just How to Train Your Dragon, but I think this finished out fine. I think it paralleled itself. It came up with some interesting stories to show and then complete. And I like the fact that basically everybody's here. Kit Harington's back for his role as Eric, the character that I'm not really sure we needed any more of, but we got. He's still here. He's like, remember him from How to Train Your Dragon 2? We kept him. He's around. So yeah. The audio description here is not as great as 2. I don't like it as much as the second one. The second one had better audio description. Really felt like we were engaging kids. It really felt like there was, mischief and adventure in there. This one, however, has really good writing. Also, like, there are all these scenes with Toothless and Light Fury flying together and having these like sort of like silent flirtatious moments because neither one of them talk. obviously. And, you know, those scenes I think are going to work great in a live action movie of the two of them just kind of flying around and courting courting each other. So I I'm pretty positive about How to Train Your Dragon: Hidden World. So, but yeah, I would say for me, there's a noticeable difference, and therefore, I'm giving How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World an A minus. There you go. Those are my official thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. It does not get to come to the desert island with the other films in the franchise, but neither does the live action film. So, let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing and hitting notification bells and joining my cult following here on YouTube. Without you guys, I would just be talking to myself. So I'll see you guys on the other side.